Hello, and welcome to the Contemporary American Theater Festival Unmuted series. In the segment that follows, you'll get to meet one of the playwrights from the repertory as interviewed by Ed Herendeen, our founder and producing director. This interview is with Jacqueline Goldfinger, playwright of BABEL. Enjoy watching.
And now it's my pleasure to introduce to you the playwright of BABEL, Jacqueline Goldfinger. Hi, Jackie.
Hi, Jackie. Hello. Thank you for having me.
You bet. Jackie, we met, I think, about 3 years ago. We actually met in Shepherdstown. You came to see the festival. We had a brief encounter. And then you came the next year, and we had a longer meeting, which resulted in you, well, you had submitted another play to me, and then you submitted BABEL to me. And as we spoke earlier today, interested in both these plays. And of course, we are joining the rolling world premiere of BABEL. So at this point, you're on your way to be in maybe having BABEL receive how many productions in the upcoming year when we all get back to live theater? How do you anticipate?
Somewhere between 6 and 9, depending on who signs the final contracts. Congratulations, Jackie.
And the play deserves it so much. As you know, I was knocked out by the script. Now that you've seen this little scene that we put together, which is the first time we actually see the stork, and you mentioned it earlier in your comments about this impossible thing, and Yao has come up with a way in consultation with you and the director about how the stork is going to present himself in this production with the costume designs. Talk to us about what this character does for your story and how you landed on putting this impossible character into your beautifully written comedy until it's not.
Comedy until it's not. Well, I think that laughter opens up the heart and the head. I think that sometimes when we're talking about really difficult issues, it helps to find a laugh. It helps to find the way in through our shared humanity of humor. And so the stork was a way where it's really fun and the characters enjoy the stork, and the stork gets to be a little funky and funny and ridiculous until the stork pushes them to make a decision. And that's when it gets serious. So I was looking for a way, because the ideas of reproductive technologies, the idea of this new eugenics, people don't like to use the word eugenics, but the fact is that it is. It's selecting specific genes to stay and specific genes to be taken out. So it's such a hard and complex subject and provocative subject matter that I think by having the play start out with these two couples who've been friends for a long time and they have this weird encounter with this wacky figure, it gives us a way into some really challenging conversations.
I love the way you talk about comedy and a good laugh for the head too. I look at this as almost a morality play in many ways. You're dealing, as you've already said, this is the questions are ethical. They're ethical for our time. Maybe at one time I might have promoted this play as you say in the script, set in the future. I'm not so sure we're in the future as closer to being in the immediate present as we know technology and science and research is asking us as humans to make these hard ethical decisions soon. And I don't want to give anything in the way because I think the audience will go on a journey. And if it does what you did to me when I encountered the play on the first read-through, hopefully it will put the audience into some of those uncomfortable places where they would say, what would I do? Or how do I feel about this? I love the kind of plays that you're laughing, but then like Brendan Bain says, I like to sneak up behind the audience when they're laughing and hit them in the head with a lead pipe. Because it's that moment of bang, and maybe they wake up in the middle of the night with the covers tossed off the bed, thinking about what you just put them through. I think this play has that power. Can you talk to us a little bit about, because I'm always, one of the questions I always ask playwrights when I'm directing their play or when I'm not, is, you know, titles to me are so important. I think Tennessee Williams was like brilliant in how he entitled a play. You know, Streetcar Named Desire. If you can crack that title, you can crack the play, the understanding of it. You do one word, love the simplicity of that. Do you want to share, or do you want us to have to go through that experience? Because you can say, I'd rather not answer that question. But you came up with one title, a one-word title. Do you want to talk a little bit about that?
Sure, I'm happy to. I also, like you, I like the mythic. I like the older fashioned morality plays. So the fact that it reminded you of that just tickled my heart, Ed. So thank you. And for me, I like the title to really imbue the theme of the piece. So what I'm hoping is that folks who know the biblical or mythical, or however you describe it, story of Babel have some sense of the ideas that we will be jumping into in terms of man trying to become or get as close as possible to becoming gods. So it will give people a little bit of a feel of the theme is usually what I go for in my titles. Also, it's just a great word. Like it has two B's in it. Right? The hard consonant at the end. It's a little funny, so it makes sense that you would title a comedy that, because it's structured like a funny comic word, but it's really about this really thought-provoking story. It just seemed to fit so beautifully into what we are doing that I actually found the title, I think, quite early on in the process for this play. Usually it takes me a couple drafts to find the title because your theme may shift depending on what your characters decide to do. But for this one was pretty straightforward from the beginning.
I think it's a rich title. And I also, what do babies do? You know, I mean, you know, they babble. And, you know, I love titles that can work in different ways, you know, the biblical, all of that. Now, I know that Peggy's probably over here giving me the look.
I'm going to say, should we look at questions maybe from the audience?
So we're going to go to the audience now. Peggy?
Do we have any questions or anybody raising their hands, comments? Anybody have comments? Because I thought you were telling me that we did. No?
You've left them speechless. But yeah, thank you for sharing.
Oh, wait. Lots of comments coming through the chat about the stork. And I've seen some stuff about some awesome writing and some other comments like that coming through. Yeah.
As you now have the opportunity to work with almost 9 productions, we're hoping now with this play, you're going to see so many different, you know, directors take your play. Can you think of a couple of things that you're already learning from collaborating with different teams?
One of the reasons that I love theater is that it really is such an intimate experience for your community, right? So it's not like a movie or a television show where you're trying to appeal to a mass broad audience. You can really design things, even using the same text, and direct shows, even using the same text, in a way that highlights the important conversations for your community. So it's really interesting to go and look at a production in Kansas City where the director and designers really highlighted the complications between the relationship between the two couples, versus going and looking at the production in Philadelphia. And in Philadelphia, near the theater, there were 7 or 8 hospitals. So there were lots of doctors and nurses and those types of folks in attendance. And so their production was more heavily leaning on the scientific, moral, and ethical questions because that was their community. So that's one of the things I try and do with all my plays, but I'm finding with this play specifically, because I did write it to be a little more open and flexible than my other pieces, it's really cool to see, okay, how is this company shaping it, highlighting which themes to resonate with their particular people in their neighborhood. And I've loved watching that. It's been really fascinating.
That's terrific. Good. It really is. It's so collaborative, so trusting of you as the primary artist to put your work in the hands of other artists. There's no other art form like it. And it just breaks my heart that we're not here live watching this thing happen. But we will be. We're going to be back. You know that you're coming back here, and
Yay!
you're going to bring Babel with our team here. So we can't wait.
I love
questions?
CHTF.
Thank you.
Oh, thank you.
I think, do you have a question? Yes, Nicole has a question.
All right, this is from the chat box. Are you getting requests for changes to the original script to match with the community the local production is going to see?
Occasionally I do, and I'm happy to make small changes as long as the primary conversations stay intact. So for example, the Philadelphia production was the last production before COVID hit. And in Philadelphia, we did change some references. We did change a couple things to make it feel like the couples were actually living in the Philadelphia of the future and in actually specifically that neighborhood around the hospitals. And anything I can do that deepens the connection with the audience, but does not destroy the dramaturgical integrity of the play, typically I do. And that's not just for Babel, that's for any of my plays. I have an adaptation of Little Women that's very popular. It's been out there for years. And occasionally I'll get requests like, we're gonna do this in Hong Kong. No one knows what X is. Can we explain what that means in American culture in a line? And I'm like, yes, here's a line, throw it in. The Civil War is very complicated. Like, let's just have a character tell your audience what that means so that they can learn it and then not take away from the story of the sisters, right? So for me, that's why I chose theater, is because I want things to live and breathe and evolve. If I wanted something to be frozen, I'd put it in a book or a movie. But what's most important to me is that connection that we make between people, whether the artist or the audience or anywhere in between.
I'm so happy to, that's one of the many things I'm missing is that breathing audience. Like I was saying earlier, we'd be in our second week of performances, and we're missing, desperately missing, that live audience, giggling, laughing, coughing, sighing, whatever those noises that they do. I'm always so in tune, but I know so many writers who sit in the back, and every breath or shuffle of a foot or cough that an audience makes, they are hearing intensely and learning from it oftentimes, or the sniffles or the cries.
Absolutely, because we've seen the play, right? Like, I don't watch my own play because I've seen it in rehearsal a million times. I'm watching the audience.
Yeah.
If there's a point at which like 10 women in the audience reach for their purse to get something, I know that moment is really boring. And I need to figure out why it's not working and why they are not engaged, and instead they're rummaging through their purses. Same things with coughs. You can tell, as long as it's not cold season, a lot of times you can tell when people are engaged or not by how they breathe or cough or just be in the space. So it's hugely important.
It's live. Peggy, do we have a live question?
No. Well, I think we've lost them now, but why don't you go to the last question there?
Sure. Okay.
Yep.
So this is a question, if you were watching earlier, I also gave to the sound designers. And I take this off not only because it's hot, but we've all been experiencing this world, the broken world that we're living in, the pain and the suffering, especially since the George Floyd tragedy. The pandemic shut the theaters down, that was one thing. This is now on top of that. How has it changed? You live in Philadelphia, you're based in Philadelphia, you're an artist and a writer, you've been called to that profession. How is what we're experiencing in this national event, this national tragedy, how is it changing, if it is, you as a person, as a human, and as an artist?
Well, one of the things I'm trying to do right now is learn as much as I can. I'm taking the time where I also teach, but I'm teaching online now, so I have all that time that I don't have to commute to the classroom. And I'm trying to take my time to read more. I've watched a number of webinars and talks. like Ed mentioned earlier, listening and how do I improve and deepen my listening skills. So those are all things that I can do right now from home. I don't have to wait. In terms of my art, I think because growing up in the Deep South, I grew up with a lot of Black folks and a lot of white folks and not much in between. And you see that in my plays, that my plays tend to have a lot of Black and white folks and not as many people who are culturally specific in other ways, whether they be Asian actors, for example, right? So thinking about how can I broaden my perspective of the stories I write and how I write them, but also be respectful and also make sure that I am telling a story that I actually can tell. And when I want to tell it, how am I making sure I'm educated enough to tell it? Another thing that I've done in the past, and I'll continue doing, is that I will bring people in. For example, I had a show, Click, at Vortex Theater in Austin in January before COVID. And so there are a number of trans and non-binary characters. So during the workshop process, we paid some trans and non-binary artists for a day to come in and watch a workshop run and talk to us about it so that we could make sure that the stories we're putting on stage are truer than true, right? Because that's what we strive for in theater. It's like we tell you a lie so you can get to the truth.
Yeah.
So to make sure that things are truer than true, making sure that not only am I educating myself, which I'm having time to do during the pandemic, but moving forward, making sure that I continue and even amp up the voices in the room who are given space to give feedback, which I think is really important.
Thank you for sharing that. And you really hit on one of my sweet spots. We're makers of belief. You know,
Yes.
we make believe because we're looking for the truth and beauty in a work. And I wish you continued success with BABEL and keep writing. And thank you for joining us today. Do we have anything else we want to say?
Nope, we're going to wrap it up with Jackie, and then we'll just say goodbye.
Jackie, thank you so much. Okay.
Thank you.
Enjoy. We'll see you soon. Okay.
Thank you, Jackie. Bye.
Bye.